Looking for something to read? Well, these are the books that I've written. Hop on down to the description to find the Amazon links for all 4 of them, and keep your eyes open for more in the future. With that said, on to the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and it's time to take a look at Gamera Rebirth Episode 2 and see how that turned out. So the first half of this episode is spent following Boko, Joe, Junichi, and Brody, who are going to be our 4 main characters. Boko, Joe, and Junichi, of course, were the 3 we started out with. Brody was the American bully, but now he's going to be part of the main cast, and we see that, like so many bullies in the real world, he's got issues at home. So you kind of understand where he's coming from. It's not like they explored it that deeply, but there's a clear sense of why he acts the way he does. So he gets the most development of the group in this particular episode. But we also get to see plenty of Joe being kind of standoffish about the fact that Brody just kind of inserted himself into their friend group like he's just always been there, or like he deserves to be there. And they're the ones who butt heads the most, but by the end they've come to an understanding of some sort. And the way in which they all eventually form that group, it actually feels very natural. Considering that it happens over the course of just this one episode, and this is again where I think the longer episodes actually are a benefit, well, it did feel like I said, it felt natural. In fact, I'm kind of surprised in this day and age that we have a series where the boys are written like boys. Yes, they get into fights perhaps. Yes, they go head to head, but, you know, after that, they shake it off, shake hands, friends again, or friends for the first time. That's how it works, surprisingly enough. And it's nice to see that the series managed to incorporate that in. However, we also get a little bit of world building. We know that in a general sense, the kaiju in this particular setting are ancient creatures. It seems like they're borrowing a little bit from the MonsterVerse and saying, or at least implying, that these monsters were part of an ancient ecosystem that somehow... We don't really know that much about it, but they did interact with humans. Unlike in the MonsterVerse, however, it's determined that all of them are a threat because they like to eat people, and especially like to eat children. Hence why we have children as our protagonists. And they keep saying, protecting the children is the most important thing. Now, could that just be a sense of, we have to protect the children because that's the right thing to do? Could be. It feels like the way they're setting it up, though, that there might be something more to it. But, we'll see. And of course, just because we've established that the monsters were there for millennia, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are a natural part of the environment. They could have come from anywhere. They could have still a multitude of origins, but only future episodes will reveal how much the characters know, if in fact they know anything. But all the same, it is nice to see that they're at least putting a little thought into this. Now, of course, this is the episode where Jiger makes her big debut, and I just did a video regarding Gamera versus Jiger, so yeah, Jiger's the one most infamous monster of the whole Gamera series, I believe. And I will say, they did downgrade the threat a little bit. Like, in the original movie, when Jiger stabs Gamera with that little barb in her tail, that doesn't just cause a wound, that injects an egg into him, and a parasite starts growing, which is what causes his body to start shutting down. It's really kind of disturbing, I gotta say, if you watch the movie. But here, the barbed tail is just a weapon. It just stabs Gamera in the side a bunch of times, doesn't actually implant anything in there. If it did, I'm sure we would have gotten some kind of hint. but we didn't. And of course, Jiger doesn't shoot any needles that pierce Gamera's limbs and prevent him from retracting them. So, not necessarily as big of a threat as she was. And also, no orange death ray that dissolves you down to the bone. But all the same, Jiger still makes an impression. The new design is really good. Looks kind of like a ferocious mutant triceratops of some kind. And the overall, again, detail and animation, really good. They managed to properly update Jiger, so like, Jiger, for example, had a huge head in the original suit. Even by kaiju standards, it was like, head, body, practically the same size. And, worth noting, Jiger was one of the few kaiju suits that depicted a quadruped kaiju but didn't have kaiju crawl, where, you know, the suit actors crawling around on their hands and knees. They actually found a way to have it so it was plodding around on its feet. So that's also easier to do with animation, of course, so they have that as well. But overall, again, like I've said in the past, clearly recognizable as Jiger, but a much needed upgrade. And the shots that they have of Jiger, from the shots of the hordes of smaller ones multiplying in the sewers, to that great moment in the cave where the kids are having their argument and they can't tell it's right there. And you're just waiting for the shoe to drop. You're waiting for it to wake up and see what happens. And Gamera continues to be interesting. I noticed that in episode 1 and episode 2, he's flying in the traditional sense. Like, he's got his flipper wings extended, and apparently jets come out of those as well. He's got the rockets firing from the back, but so far he has not displayed a flying saucer mode, which is one of the most recognizable things about how he gets around. That could mean he doesn't have that mode at all here. I don't know. They might reveal it towards the end, or maybe not. I don't necessarily think it's that big of a deal if just this once he doesn't do the spinning saucer thing. But, well, we'll see. I just noticed that so far he hasn't done it yet. I also kind of like how the show once again harkens back to the Showa series by having these kids be the center of everything and finding some way to have them go headlong into danger. Like having them go into the sewers where they have heard the kaiju are, thinking they can take them on themselves. If you haven't seen any previous Gamera films, believe me, that is not the craziest thing kids have done in these movies. Gamera vs. Giron had them just find a flying saucer and turn it on, taking them to a completely different planet. So this is still pretty grounded by comparison, but it's in line with what we saw in those original Showa movies, where the kids would somehow find themselves in the middle of everything. And again, it feels like they're hinting at the kids being more important than just we need to protect them because they're children. They're hinting at something else, I'm sure of that. What it is, we will see. But the next episode ends by showing Zigra wake up. And Zigra's going to be an interesting one, because Zigra not only got quite a drastic redesign, but I'm also curious to see whether or not he'll be talking. I don't think he will, because in the original Showa timeline, Zigra only really spoke because he was an alien. Here, he probably isn't, although we don't know. So I doubt he will talk, and I'm not entirely sure we'll be seeing Gamera play music on his fins, but, well, if they do, that'll be the most insane thing, because of all the things to call back. But anyway, we'll talk about Zigra when the time comes. For now, this episode feels like a nice progression. It introduced some new elements that have me intrigued about where the plot is going. It got the characters together in a way that does feel natural to the story. The kaiju fights continue to be solid. The rock music that plays when Gamera appears is probably going to be one of my new favorite kaiju themes. Yeah, Gamera Rebirth is still going strong. Let's see if we can keep the momentum up with episode 3. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni viewer signing off. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see us keep doing what we're doing, you might consider doing all the usual YouTube things, as well as hopping down to the description to find links to DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, and links for the different books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Your support is naturally appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.